بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين الحمد لله. We begin our lesson tonight by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue, and we pray that Allah bless this lesson and make it a reason where our sins are forgiven and prayers are answered inshallah ta'ala. And we pray that Allah bless us with tawfiq and hidayah, bless us with iman and taqwa, and may Allah protect us from all difficulties, trials and tribulations in dunya and akhirah. Ameen ya rabbal alameen. So in our last lesson, in the commentary of Aqaid Nasafiyyah, we were speaking about the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we were speaking about the definition of the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we mentioned that the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what Imam Nasafiyyah mentioned, Laysa min genus al-hurufi والأصوات, laysa min genus al-hurufi والأصوات, that the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not any comprises of letters and sounds. And also the Kalam of Allah is a pre-eternal attribute that subsists in his entity. This is what also we mentioned, and this is the point where we differ with the Mu'tazila, because the Mu'tazila, they do not believe that Kalam is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Qadim. This is the last thing we mentioned. وَفِي هَذَا رَدٌّ عَلَى الْحَنَابِلَةِ وَالْكَرَّمِيَّةِ. Some of the Hanabila, they mention that the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comprises of words and sounds. And these are basically the madhab of Tajsim. Madhab of Tajsim, they believe that the Kalam of Allah comprises of letters and sound, and that they are contingent. The reality is that they are contingent, but yet they claim that it is pre-eternal. Even though words and letters are something that is easily understood to be contingencies, but they mention that it is also Qadim. So there is a contradiction in their belief. So this is basically the last thing that we mentioned in our last lesson. So today's lesson, inshallah, we continue from here. So let us look what Al-Imam Nasafiyyah and Imam Taftazani mentioned. Al-Imam Nasafiyyah, he said, وَهُوَ sifatun ay al-kalam. So kalam now, he mentioned sifatun ay ma'nan qa'imun bidhat. So again, Al-Imam Taftazani, he explained what is the meaning of sifa of al-kalam. So he said that it is ma'nan qa'imun bidhat. So it is an attribute that subsists in the entity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or in the zat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So number one, we mentioned that it is pre-eternal, and a pre-eternal attribute. Number two, it is an attribute that subsists in his entity. This is what Al-Imam Taftazani explains, from the words of Al-Imam Nasafi. So from here, I think we are clear on the definition, and no problem. Now when we go on, he mentioned munafiyatun lilsukut. So it is not the same as being silent. So when we say that the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is a pre-eternal attribute that subsists in his entity, and we mentioned that the Kalam of Allah is nafsiyah and not lafdiyah. So maybe I explain this again. Kalam in the Arabic language, they are divided into two categories. Number one is Kalam lafdi. Kalam lafdi, and it is like my Kalam, our Kalam, and when we speak, our speech is comprises of words and sounds. This is lafzi. There is another type of Kalam. For example, when we speak to ourselves, this is also considered to be Kalam. Our thoughts, for example, if I am quiet but I am speaking to myself, saying what I will do next, and so on and so forth. So this is Kalam. But this kind of Kalam is Kalam nafsi. It is not something that you express, but it is within you, something that you speak with in yourself. So this is Kalam nafsi. In the Arabic language, this is the meaning of Kalam nafsi. So it is different than different than keeping silent. It is different than keeping silent. This is where Al-Imam Taftazani mentioned alladhi huwa tarku takallum ma'al qudrati alayh. The meaning of keeping silent is when a person when a person yani has any the ability yani to speak, but yani he chose not to speak. So that is any the meaning any of silence, and this is any with regard to kalam lafzi. This is any regard any to kalam any lafzi. So when comes any to the kalam any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we do not any ascribe any silence any to the kalam any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because silence and words and sounds, all these are within the domain of kalam lafzi. But the kalam any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what we mentioned, it is kalam nafsi, that has got nothing to do any with this definition any of silence. والآفة منافية للسكوت. So the kalam any of Allah is not described as silent, and it is not any described any as a disability. Al-afa. Al-afa is a disability. For example, if a person yani is dumb, a person yani is dumb, he cannot speak. A person is dumb. So you say allati hiya adamu mutawa'atil alat. So the meaning of afa here, the inability yani of the organs or the body part yani to function. So in this case, when a person does not have any the ability to speak, like the akhras, when a person does not have the ability any to speak. So this is any the difference any between silence and al-afa, a defect. So silence any is having the ability to speak but choose not to speak, whereas a defect any, or a person who is dumb, yani he does not have any the ability any to speak. So basically what the author is saying, that we cannot ascribe the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as silent, and we also cannot be ascribing na'udzubillah min dhalik that the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has defects, that Allah yani is dumb, na'udzubillah min dhalik. So this is basically what yani he's saying, imma bihasabil fitrati kama huwa fil kharsi. So not having the ability any to speak, either it is naturally when a person is born, like when a person is born and dumb, or bihasabi da'fiha, or a person and he has a weakness in speaking and does not have the ability to express. وَعَدَمِ بُلُورِهَا حَدَّ الْقُوَّةِ كَمَا فِي الطُّفُولَةِ, or like what is in the infant, yani small a toddler, for example, or infant or babies, they do not have any the ability to speak yet. Because why? Because any of the situation, they are still any in the stage of infancy. But once any they grow up, they will have the ability to speak. So this is either any we are saying that naturally he's born dumb, or he has a weakness any in terms any of articulating and speech, or a person any still any in the stage any of infancy, where he or she does not have the ability to speak. So this is from the meanings any of a defect. So basically, again, what the author any is saying, that we do not any ascribe in silent any to Allah, and likewise we do not any ascribe a defect, whether it is defect any in terms any of dumbness, or defect any in terms any of not having any the ability, and so on and so forth. So all these any meanings any are compulsory any for us any to abstain, that we cannot any ascribe any to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Al-Imam Taftazani brings about this what you call it, this question, and then he will answer this question as what we mentioned, and we come across many times in the methodology of Al-Imam Taftazani, and at times he will bring a question as though someone is asking a question, and then he will say qulna, then he will say what you call it, the reply to that question. So this question, he's saying fa in qila hadha al-kalamu innama yasduqu ala kalami al-lafzi duna kalami al-nafsi idh as-sukut wal kharsu innama yunafi at-talaffuz qulna al-murad as-sukut wal-afa al-batinan. So if a person is saying that this kind of speech that is mentioned is about kalam lafzi, but what about kalam an-nafsi? What about kalam an-nafsi? Because keeping quiet and not having the ability to speak, it go against any kalam lafzi. So the question is asking what about kalam? What about kalam nafsi? Qulna al-muradu sukut wal-afa al-batinan. So he said that what is meant is that the silence or the inability, it is with regard to the internal defects, internally. بأن لا يريد في نفسه التكلم. So he gave this example, like a person does not want even to speak within himself. There is no kalam in nafsi. أو لا يقدر على ذلك, or he does not have the ability to do kalam nafsi. So here there are two ways, and when you speak about silence and defects, so whether we are speaking about silent and defects in terms of lafzi, or silent or defects in terms of nafsi. So here Al-Imam Tabtazani is saying they are both ways, the two ways. So whether we are speaking about silence lafzi, any meaning a person does not speak. There is another type of silence, silence that is nafsi, is what is mentioned by Al-Imam Tabtazani. How does we understand silent that is any nafsi? So he said bi an la yurid fi nafsihi at-takallum, he does not even want to speak within himself. He does not want to have any thoughts. And this is possible, correct or not? And if a person, for example, he wants to sit down and he wants to clear his mind from all forms of thoughts. So this is not only it is silence in terms of speech, but it is silence internally. أو لا يقدر على ذلك. There are people, for example, they do not have the ability to speak internally, to speak internally, and that is also possible. So this is what is meant as silence that is nafsi, silence which is internal, and also defect that is internal. فَكَمَا أَنَّ الْكَلَامَ لَفْظِيٌّ وَنَفْسِي فَكَذَا ضِدُّهُ. So he said likewise, we say kalam, we have lafzi and nafsi, and likewise we have the opposites of lafzi and nafsi. So what is the opposite of lafzi? So we have silence that is lafzi, and we also have silence that is nafsi. So we have afa that is lafzi, we have afa that is nafsi. So I hope it is clear. I've explained all this, earlier. فَكَذَا ضِدُّهُ أَعْنِي السُّكُوت وَالْخَرْص. So these are the two things that we negate for Allah, that Allah is not ascribed as silence, whether silence lafzi or nafsi, and Allah is not dumb, whether it is based on lafzi, that not being able to speak, and likewise not being able to have any kalam nafsi. All this compulsory for us to negate for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now when we go on to the next part, and he say wallahu ta'ala mutakallimun biha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he is mutakallim, amirun bihi, nahin, mukhbir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the attribute of kalam, as what we mentioned. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he commands through his kalam, and he prohibits, and he also he explains. So we have a few things here. We have the command, we have prohibition, and we have the khabar. We have the khabar. So before we go into this, it is important for us to understand, especially when we read the Qur'an. For example, Qur'an, we have the what is called as the al-insha wal khabar, khabar and insha. So let me explain this first. Even in usul al-fiqh we study this. Basically, you see, in the Arabic language, speeches are divided into two parts. Speeches are divided into two parts. The first is called khabar. Is called khabar. What is the meaning of khabar? Basically, it is a piece of information where you speak about, where there is a possibility it is true or it is false. Of course, we are not speaking about the Quran now, we are just speaking generally in the Arabic language. Later we go on to the Quran after this. So in the Arabic language, when we say khabar, meaning you come out with a sentence, and this sentence has possibilities, meaning it can be true or false. So for example, I say Zaid is standing. Zaid is standing. This is khabar. This is a piece of information, and there is a possibility that Zaid is standing, which is true, or which is false. For example, a person lying, you say Zaid is standing outside the room, for example, and we do not see Zaid, but Zaid is not standing. So kalam, in this nature, we call it the khabar. It is a piece of information that can accept true or false. But there is another type which is called al-insha. Al-insha comes by the command. For example, you tell a person stand. So this kind of sentence, a command sentence, we do not ask the question whether it is true or false, because there is no domain for us to judge whether it is true or false, because what we are doing, it's basically we are commanding. So command does not have any true or false. It's either that person does what is commanded, or he does not perform what is commanded. So this is called insha. So now if you go back into the Quran, for example, of course we do not say Quran there is a possibility true or false. All of the Quran is true. Quran is a miracle. We have belief, as what we mentioned, that the Quran is a word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is impossible that it accept any kind of lies. But here we are speaking about the structure of sentences. So when you look at the Quran, for example, Allah speaks about Nabi Musa alayhi salam, that once upon a time there is a prophet by the name of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, and he was sent to Fir'aun, and he has miracles where his stick can turn into a snake, and so on and so forth. So this is the nature of khabar. So it is a storyline. Allah is teaching us what has happened in the past. So when it comes to insha, we have the commandments. For example, Allah said, "Wa aqimus salata wa atuz zakah." This is insha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding us to perform the prayers and to perform the zakah. So here the author is saying either amirun biha, nahin mukhbir. So these are the three types. And we have either we say kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way of commanding, which is insha. Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way of mukhbir, in the way of khabar, that is what you call it, information. So all these are within the meaning of the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But of course the meanings are different. So when we speak about commandments, we speak about the people who are commanded, who are the people who are commanded. But when we speak about khabar, basically it is just an information that Allah is telling us about His greatness, or about what happened in the past, and so on and so forth. So going forward, inshallah, we will understand where we are getting, because Al-Imam Tatazani is going to explain this what is meant by Al-Imam Nasafi when he say wallahu ta'ala mutakallimun biha, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks. Allah has the attribute of al-kalam, and Allah command and prohibit and inform. He said annahu sifatun wahidatun, the kalam of Allah is one pre-eternal attribute. Why did he say must he say that Allah has one pre-eternal attribute of al-kalam? Because why? Because the commandments of Allah are many, the prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are many, and the khabar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are many. So it doesn't mean that there are many commandments, there are many prohibitions, there are many kalam. The kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as an attribute, as a pre-eternal attribute, and is one. But the linkages of this kalam are many. The linkages, for example, Allah commanded us to pray, one commandment. Allah commanded us to fast. Allah commanded us to pay the zakah. Allah commanded us to perform the hajj. Allah prohibited us from committing zina. Allah prohibited us from drinking liquor. So can you see, these are the many, we say, relations to the kalam. So how do we know that prayer is compulsory? Through the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do we know zina is prohibited? By the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do we know that hajj is wajib? By the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we say these are the linkages to the kalam. So this is what Al-Imam Tatazani he meant. He said, يعني أنه صفة واحدة تتكثر إلى الأمر والنهي والخبر. But the linkages are many, consisting of al-amr, the commandment, and nahi, the prohibition, wal khabar, is the information. باختلاف التعلقات, باختلاف التعلقات, due to the differences of the relations or linkages. So as what we mentioned, the commandments of Allah are many, the prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are many, the khabar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are many. Now these are the ta'alluqat, these are the linkages of the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like he say kal ilmi, just like any knowledge also we have the ta'alluqat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is going to happen tomorrow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows when the rain will come. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we say in our hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows every minds of human beings that are in existence. Allah knows what is happening in the sea. Allah knows what's happening in the sky. So all these are linkages to the knowledge of Allah. But knowledge of Allah is one. But all these are things that are linked to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we call it the ta'alluqat, the effects of the knowledge of Allah. Likewise, when you speak about the kalam, the effects of the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have all these different linkages. Likewise, والقرآن, you said, pertaining to qudra, power of Allah, also we have the linkages. For example, we are the effect of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah created human beings, Allah created Zayd, Allah created Usman, Allah created the jinn, Allah created the shayateen, Allah created the mountains, Allah created the skies. So all these are the different types of creation. So these are the ta'alluqat. These are the effects of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the ta'alluqat are many, but power of Allah is one. This is basically what Imam Taftazani is saying. Wasa'iru sifat. And likewise other attributes. So for example, we have the sifa of al-irada. Also we have the ta'alluqat. The ta'alluqat of irada is takhsis, specification. That Allah specifies that you are in existence in this age, not any 1,000 years ago. There are people who lived 1,000 years ago, they are specified by Allah to live at that particular time. So when it comes to our ethnicity, whether we are in the east or we are in the west, all these are linkages to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we are the effects of the will of Allah. So here we say the ta'alluqat. So he mentioned wasa'ir sifat fa inna kullan minha sifatun wahidatun qadima. So every attribute, it is one attribute with many linkages. So we have the attribute of kalam, we have linkages like the commandments, the prohibitions, the informations, and then we have the linkages of knowledge. Every information, everything is known by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all these are many things. And then we have the linkages of the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All these things that we see around us are the effects of the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But qudra of Allah is one, kalam of Allah is one, knowledge of Allah is one. Tamam? But what is many is the creations. And what is the linkages to these attributes. So this is what exactly what he said, وَالتَّكَسُّرُ وَالْحُدُوثُ إِنَّمَا هُوَ بِاعْتِبَارِ التَّعَلُّقَاتِ وَالْإِضَافَاتِ. So he said the many factions and the contingencies, all this is with regard to the linkages. All this is regard to the linkages and what is ascribed to the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lima anna dhalika alyaqu bi kamal at-tauhid. That is what you call it, that shows the completion, or we say the perfection of tawheed, the perfection of tawheed. So when we speak about knowledge, we say that the knowledge of Allah encompasses all things. When we speak about the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we say the power of Allah brings into existence all beings, all things. And we speak about the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it explains knowledges, it explains the commandments, the prohibitions. وَلِأَنَّهُ لَا دَلِيلَ عَلَى تَكَسُّرِ كُلٍّ مِنْهَا فِي نَفْسِهَا. So it is not that the attributes are many, but it is the linkages that are many. So after this, we have this what you call it, question and answer of Imam Taftazani that has relation with a deeper meaning of the aspect of al-kalam. We will skip this and we will straight away enter into al-Qur'anu kalamullah. Al-Qur'an kalamullah. So once we understood the meaning of al-kalam, so now the author is saying the al-Qur'an is the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we just take some time, inshallah. Today we will end a bit early because I have some errands. So the author is saying walamma sarraha bi azaliyatil kalam. So Al-Imam Taftazani is saying that Al-Imam Nasafi, when he speaks about that kalam is pre-eternal, azaliyatil kalam, say hawala tanbiha ala anna al-Qur'ana aydan يطلق على هذا الكلام النفسي القديم. So once we have understood that the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pre-eternal, and that the Qur'an is the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the Qur'an is also pre-eternal, and the Qur'an is Kalam nafsi al-qadim, kama yutlaqu ala nadhmil matluwi al-hadith faqal. So he mentioned that there will be a difference between Kalam nafsi and Kalam lafzi after this. So he mentioned that yutlaqu, that the Qur'an people when they speak about the Qur'an, what usually people meant is the book. What people meant is the letters and the sounds. So when we study Aqidah, we have to make this differentiation, that whenever we speak about the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, once we have understood that the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pre-eternal, that it is Kalam nafsi, not lafzi. At the same time also we are aware that people, when they speak about the Qur'an, they have this at the back of their mind, that what is meant is what is being read and what is being spoken out. So from this, Al-Imam Taftazani he is going to speak about this difference. Faqala, Al-Imam Nasafiyyah he said, والقرآن كلام الله تعالى غير مخلوق. So the Qur'an is the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is not a creation. So once we understand Kalam of Allah is not a creation, but Kalam of Allah is an attribute, and it is pre-eternal, it subsists in the entity of Allah, and it is Kalam nafsi and not lafzi. And the Qur'an is the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is the meaning when we say the Qur'an is not makhluk? So what we mean by the Qur'an here is not the Qur'an that is spoken. It's not the Qur'an that is spoken. It's not any Qur'an that is the letters that is read. But what we meant by the Qur'an here, when we say that the Qur'an is Kalamullah, what we meant is the meanings behind the Qur'an. Meaning it is the Kalamun nafsi, and it is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Al-Imam Taftazani he mentioned that is why Al-Imam Taftazani he speaks about Kalam first, then he speaks about Qur'an. Why doesn't he speak about Qur'an then Kalam? Because he knows that people have the understanding that the Qur'an is what we speak, what we write, the letters and the sounds. So he speaks about Kalam first, so that we know what is the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he speaks about the Qur'an. So we know that what is meant, that the Qur'an is the Kalam of Allah, is not Kalam lafzi, but it is Kalam nafsi. So can you see the psychology of Al-Imam al-Nasafi? This is mentioned by Al-Imam Taftazani. وَأَقَّبَ الْقُرْآنَ الْكَرِيمِ بِكَلَامِ اللَّهِ. So he said that he mentioned Qur'an after the mentioning the meaning of the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لِمَا ذَكَرَهُ الْمَشَايِخ, just like the Mashayikh, and the Mashayikh here is the scholars of Kalam. لِمَا ذَكَرَهُ الْمَشَايِخ مِأَنَّهُ يُقَالْ الْقُرْآنِ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ. So this is how it is said. The Qur'an is the Kalam of Allah, and Kalam of Allah is not a creation. وَلَا يُقَالْ الْقُرْآنُ غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ. And it should not be said that the Qur'an is not a creation. لِأَلَّا يَسْبَقْ إِلَى الْفَهْمِ أَنَّ الْمُؤَلَّفَ مِنَ الْأَصْوَاتِ وَالْحُرُوفِ قَدِيمٌ. So that we want to abstain from people into thinking, from people into thinking that what is meant by the Qur'an is what the letters and the sounds that are pre-eternal. But in reality, the letters and sounds, they are not pre-eternal. So who are the ones who mention that the letters or sounds are pre-eternal? The Hanabila. Some the sect within the Hanabila who fell into Tajsim as what we mentioned, and the Karamiyah. So they mention that Allah speaks by letters and sound. So Al-Imam Taftazani is saying that the Mashayikh of Ilm Kalam is saying that what is correct for us to say is Al-Qur'an Kalamullah Ghayrul Makhluq. So we have Al-Qur'an and then we have Kalamullah. So we say the Qur'an, that is the Kalam of Allah, that is not any makhluk. Not any what is read and what is said out. Because what is read and what is said out is contingent. It is not any pre-eternal. If I am reciting the Qur'an, my recitation is a contingency. It is not any pre-eternal. Tamam? But what we meant by the kalam of Al-Quran as the kalam of Allah, that is the pre-eternal attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the meanings behind those letters and sounds. So it is not any the letters and sounds. So letters and sounds are makhluk. Letters and sounds are makhluk. Just like if you have in the Quran now, the letters in the Quran is a creation, no doubt. Yani it is printed. Imagine if this is the Quran. This is not the Quran, but just imagine if this is the Quran and this book is makhluk. The letters that is printed is makhluk. So you cannot be saying this is qadim. You cannot be saying that this is the kalam of Allah, meaning the letters and sounds and the pages. How can that be the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is contingent. So what we meant by Al-Quran is the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is kalamun nafsi and not kalamun lafzi, and it is not the letters and the sounds. So here basically Al-Imam Taftazani is explaining in greater detail. Kama dhahaba ilayhi al-hanabilatu jahlan, and because of the ignorance, wa inadan, and because of stubbornness. There are people who doesn't want to accept the truth because of extreme views within themselves. Wa aqama غير المخلوق وأقام غير المخلوق مقام غير الحادث. So what you call it, they fall into this thing where they say that the kalam of Allah made of letters and sounds, but at the same time it is qadim, and this is impossible. How can words and sound be eternal? تنبيها على اتحادها وقصدا إلى جر الكلام على وفق الحديث حيث قال صلى الله عليه وسلم القرآن كلام الله تعالى غير المخلوق. And our Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم mentioned this in the hadith that the Quran is the kalam of Allah and it is not makhluk. So the Mujassima they are afraid to say that the Quran is makhluk, but at the same time they are saying that it is made of letters and sounds, but these letters and sounds are what you call it pre-eternal, which is impossible. And this is the difference between the Ahlul Sunnah and the Mujassima. Wallahu alam bis-sawab. Inshallah we will stop here and we will continue in our lesson next week. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adhaban nar. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.